Well, we have another Beverly. What is your Sonia? Okay, I'm glad you guys made it out tonight. I have stuff planned, but because it's so small, please, as you have questions, just jump in and we'll talk through those. So, a little bit what's happening at St. Francis. I'm a part of the kinesiology and nutrition program. The kinesiology exercise science piece of our department has been around for 8-9 years, and nutrition is just within the last 4 years. So we're excited to have that as a new major. Our 4th class will be graduating here in May. I do have literature about either the majors, or if you have questions or you have family members, please ask questions or take flyers, because we're ready to have people understand what we're doing with our majors. As far as tonight, we are going to talk through this disease-proof book, and I can pass this around. Dr. David Katz, he just has written about what we can do with feet, fork, and fingers in relationship to our health, and even doing some things to reverse disease that we may already have encountered. So that's kind of exciting. A little bit about me. I am a registered dietitian. I have to stop and think how many years, over 20 years. I worked at Lutheran Hospital for about 14 years. And then the last few years I've been at St. Francis developing the new program. So my love truly is working in the community and doing presentations like this, or working one-on-one with individuals. And then obviously teaching new students to become dietitians. So that's a little bit about me. And 3 very active children that are all in different sports, so we're always moving. Excuse me, I should have brought some water. Let's start with, you guys kind of, I think, understand what the feet, fork, I don't know how to make it go. There, feet, obviously. The book's going to talk about exercise. Do either one of you do some kind of activity on a regular basis?
Not so much as I used to.
Okay. What would you do?
I was a personal trainer for 9.5 years.
Oh, so very good.
I was very busy with that, and I had gastric bypass surgery in 2002 and lost 140 pounds. Then became active, and I ran marathons and half marathons and some triathlons, and at the Y I had 3 walk to run groups going, and I teach a stretch. I still teach a stretch.
Sure.
I left there for a while and I've gone back, but I'm not a personal trainer anymore. And so when I left, I stopped doing everything.
Okay.
A good part of it was because of my knees, because they were really
Sure.
starting to bother me. But so I'm trying to work my way back into it, and by switching the way I eat, it's making that a whole lot easier.
Good.
Because I'm not having the pain in my joints that I was having before. All of that.
And Tanya, are you doing anything else?
Regularly, no. I've been a caregiver for many, many years.
Sure.
And so have not really had the schedule or the energy to incorporate it. But
You're
they
just being
change
active
it.
during the caregiving process.
But the life situation has changed, so now it's my turn.
Okay.
So
Good. Wonderful.
I'm taking care of you.
trying.
That's the first step, right? Well, he'll talk more in depth in the book. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the activity piece, because really that's not my lane, the nutrition is, but really encouraging folks for general well-being, about 60 minutes of some kind of regular activity on a daily basis. Now, what we know, you don't have to do that 60 minutes at all one time. You can do 20 minutes here, another 20 minutes there, but over the course of the day to try to get some regular 60 minutes in. Then obviously we'll spend the bulk of tonight in the nutrition piece. How do we make it like, there we go. So the forks, obviously, and he kind of talks about a 4-prong approach with the nutrition choosing foods widely from all food categories, not eliminating carbohydrates or focusing only on one group, but looking at all food groups. And I'll give you some tips on how to do that. He talks about creating a healthy plate with a variety of colors. We know the deeper, dark, vibrant colors of our fruits and vegetables, there's a higher content of those vitamins and minerals with overall health benefits. The third prong is filling up on more what we call nutrient-dense foods versus caloric-dense foods. Again, the deep, dark colors have very little calories, but they're very rich in those nutrients, so those two kind of go together. And then the last one is making a point not to drink your calories, and we'll do a little activity with how much sugar is actually in some of the drinks that we're consuming. And his finger piece of the equation really is the smoking. I don't know why. Do you have a tip on how to get this to advance better, quicker? I'll let you mess with that. So his finger, like I said, is the smoking piece, which I assume folks that were attending probably aren't smokers. So as I was putting this together, I thought really what's been important to me for my health journey, and I think it's important for everybody, is more the spiritual aspect and how do you incorporate that into your mindfulness and that kind of avenue. So that's kind of where I go with the fingers in this presentation, but his book is primarily talking about not smoking and what that does. So let's talk a little bit about, I call it health information whiplash. Where, if you want to go find health information, do you typically go?
Google.
Google. What did you do? Just this one? Perfect. Say it again.
My chart through the doctor.
Okay, so something that's attached to your healthcare provider. When you're looking at Google, how do you filter what's accurate and maybe what I call is noise?
Well, the first thing I do is see if it's an advertised thing, because then I know
Very
that
good.
somebody's paying for that one. And I try to usually go a little further down, because I feel like that's going to be, the higher ups are usually the ones that are paying me money to be there.
Absolutely.
And so I also try to look at who did the information.
Very good, yeah. We work very hard with our students to look for evidence-based literature in relationship to what's out there for nutrition. We live in a very exciting time because we have access to so much information, but then you also have to sort through that. So I would just caution you, it sounds like you kind of have an idea of where to navigate those evidence-based, but just realizing media has a role in our health information, but how is it negatively or positively impacting your choices? And then the other things I kind of have here, why do you care about being healthy? Kind of what made you decide to come today? Or how would you define health for you and or your family? So any of those, if you want to answer.
I think health for me is feeling good, getting that sugar down, improving the eyesight, trying to get off of medications,
Excellent.
working toward that.
Okay, perfect.
And for me, it's just, figuring out what I need to eat that's better choices. And, I started this November 1st, and it was because of a Facebook challenge.
Okay.
And for me, it's been a really good choice, and I feel really good, and I'm trying to get my husband on board, and so.
So the media kind of pushed you, and now you're investigating a little bit further. What about you, Mark? Good.
I guess if I had an overarching goal, it'd probably be to keep the energy level up over a long day.
Okay.
Perfect. Just being fit enough or whatever
Okay.
to keep it going until I can stop. All right, we're done.
Okay. In the book, he talks about knowledge versus power. Again, we have access to a lot of knowledge, but the power really is what you do with that knowledge. So if I can give you a few pieces of knowledge tonight, hopefully you will go on from here and then act on that. And that will be your power for your health behavior change. Let's see. He also talks a little bit about willpower versus skill power, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I want to go back to the definition of health a little bit. The book talks about healthy life expectancy versus life expectancy. Do you think there's a difference?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. He had a statistic, if I can say this correctly, men are living, their life expectancy in relationship to their healthy life expectancy is 11 years difference. So that last 11 years, they're not typically living in a healthy manner with chronic disease or whatever that might be. What do you think the age or that span is for women?
Probably 15.
It's right around 13 years. So the other statistic he shared is 75% of Medicare expenses are going towards chronic disease management. So what are we doing with those last years of our life? Are we actually living them in a healthy way? So something to think about. So the whole thing about health behavior change is looking at the difference between willpower and skill power. He talks about will, or that desire, is something you want to do. You have this will to go ahead and make some kind of change. It's that desire. There's a little bit of preparation. You've had time to think about it, and now you're going to persevere and try to make that change. The thing with willpower, it kind of gets you started. It's kind of that spark plug. But after a period of time, willpower can kind of lose its fire. You know, we don't see willpower being 6 months, 9 months. It's more that short duration. So that's where we have to kind of flip to the thinking of using that willpower and it becoming skill, and we don't think about those healthy behaviors. It just becomes a behavior. And that's what he's defining as skill power. So that enables you to stay the course much longer. And then I like what he says, you follow the rules or the new behaviors that you're trying to incorporate until the external discipline actually becomes your internal discipline. I think that's a nice way of kind of explaining through that. So as we kind of work through the next couple slides, I want you to think about how are you currently using your feet, fork, and fingers to optimize your health? Are there ways you could improve? I know there's ways I could improve. So the 10 rules of external discipline that hopefully then we start to incorporate that into our skill power. These are the 10 that, again, he takes some time through multiple chapters to talk about. The first one, avoiding fast food. There are many, many restaurants that are giving us access to fast food that are more healthy options. But in general, the drive up to the window, get something from a fast food restaurant, generally are going to be higher in salt, fat, and sugar. So I'm not picking on McDonald's, but it's just what I chose. If you had a Big Mac, and I guess this is a medium fry now, how much fat do you think might be in this? In grams.
53.
Wow, you are late. It's 54. Yeah. But what does 54 grams of fat look like?
No idea.
This is what 54 grams of fat looks like. Now, we don't think about that when we're consuming our hamburger and French fries from whatever fast food place that might be. Do I love French fries? I absolutely do. But just getting you to think about what, again, nutrition are we taking away from that, or what nutrients, and it's more fat than anything. The second one is drinking water. I gave you the handout on how to do the water infused flavors. Here you go, Mark. Just probably the number one excuse I hear from people for not drinking enough water is I just don't like the taste of it. So using some fruits and vegetables and herbs to infuse has helped some people to drink a little more water. The next one, eat salad. That's what he says, but I would probably like to coin that a little bit different. Eat dark leafy vegetables. Again, we know the deeper, darker colors. We know if you start a meal with a deep, dark green salad, we tend to eat less of some of the not so nutritious foods because we start to fill up on that fiber that's in that salad. That doesn't mean every salad is the best, because sometimes what do we put on top of the salad? 4 is exercise every day. Again, that kind of goes back to the feet. And, you know, exercise for some, that becomes a dirty word. So I just want people to get active, you know, parking further away or wearing a pedometer and just recording what your steps are, and then the next week trying to increase that. 5 is making sleep a priority. He talks a lot about sleep and how that affects appropriate hormone function, our immune system. I think his statistics stated that individuals that consistently sleep 5 hours or less each night, it actually ages the heart much more quickly. So we don't think about, you know, what that's doing as well. That's a hard one for my teenagers, getting enough sleep. Then we move on to mind your mouth, and this is more about the whole concept of mindful eating. Have you heard that concept? Mindfulness, like actually sitting down and really thinking about the nutrients that we're going to consume and not watching TV or flipping through our Instagram feed. Or I know at our house we'll get home from a busy evening and we just maybe stand at the island and eat. So actually just taking time to focus on eating and not all the other things. Number 7, eating food with identifiable ingredients. Does anybody read the ingredient labels of their foods? And what do you do with that information? A lot of people look at the numbers, but do you actually look at the ingredient lists? You're shaking your head, yes. What do you?
I try, well, I'm working on not eating salt, oil, and sugar, so if the food has that, I try to put it away,
Okay.
or at least find it below the first 5 items.
Okay,
Because I
good.
know that in the first 5, it's going to be the majority of the product.
Good.
So if I can do that, if I can not have it, then it's better.
So you're looking how many ingredients and then where some of those ingredients fall in line. Good, those are great options.
I'm particularly looking at sugar, you know,
Okay.
because it's in everything, in
Okay.
a sense, you know, unless it's romaine lettuce, it's in everything else, you know, so.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
So, I'm always curious, like if you buy a loaf of bread, to look and see where
Right.
sugar is on the list, because you know it's in there. It's-
Right.
It's amazing.
The nice addition of the new food label that went into effect here in January is they have that added sugar line item, because there are some foods that naturally have sugar, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's not healthy, but that added sugar kind of helps delineate the two. The other thing with sugar is knowing how many different names actually mean sugar. I mean, there's a whole list. You can pretty much safely say if it ends in OSE, it's some type of sugar. You know, the corn syrup, that could be probably a whole nother talk of what's happening with that. So, go ahead.
Along with the ingredients there, the first thing I always see is how many servings are in the container.
Okay.
And then I just put it back. It's not worth it.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, if you get 3 crackers, that's a serving, really.
Yeah, do you really want it?
Right, yeah. That can be a motivator or a demotivator depending what the product is. What I like to do, and I've done with some clients, is try to keep the ingredient list to 7 ingredients or less. You're not going to do that for every particular food item just because we do eat some processed food, but that's kind of a good rule of thumb that it's probably something that is not going to sit on a shelf with a lot of preservatives for a very long period of time. But there's really no research behind that number 7, but I seem to feel like that's a good place to start. The next one, plan all eating occasions. Anybody plan their meals for the week for their grocery store shopping?
I'm getting better.
Okay.
I do
Some-
meal prep on Sundays with a friend, so we cook our meals.
Oh, nice. Good. So you tag team. Yeah. Not only when you plan and pre-prep, we know typically folks are eating overall generally healthier. People generally save money too, and sometimes that's more of a motivator than the nutrition piece of it. Even I have clients planning, they know they're going to go out to eat, but looking at the menu online before they go out to eat so they're not tempted maybe to pick something just because everybody else is picking it. And then tell everyone, this one he talks about, if you're trying to make some health behavior changes, have folks help hold you accountable. Tell them what you're doing, and you may strike up a conversation that they want to join in with you as well. So be open about it. And then the last one, choose what you chew. That's probably going back to things we've already said, but you have the choice and trying to make the appropriate choices. Okay, let's move on. So thinking about your food that you consume, do you eat the food because it's going to sustain you? Do you eat the food because of your energy needs? Do you eat the foods just because of the vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates you need? Or do you eat because the food tastes good? Which one of those is most important to you? Or is it a combo?
I would say it's a combo, at least of those last three.
Okay. Is there one that kind of sticks out a little bit more?
I mean, it's probably sustenance. I mean,
Okay.
I try to limit myself to eating when I'm hungry, as opposed to eating because there's chocolate cake on the table, or eating
Sure.
because I'm
Sure.
not, don't know what else to do,
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I mean, I try to focus on a pretty rigid schedule, but more that if you're not hungry, don't eat.
Right, listening to your body cues, absolutely. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but it should be a combination of all of those. I think sometimes with weight loss individuals, we get so stuck on the energy or calories that we miss the bigger picture of health. So just being mindful. You talked about blood sugar issues. Maybe the nutrients you are going to focus a little more on carbohydrates or sugar, but there's a health reason that you're doing that. And we can't leave out, food should be pleasurable. I mean, think of how many things revolve around food. That's part of the reason we do eat, so we should enjoy it. It shouldn't be such a chore. Okay, some relevant skills related to nutrition. We've talked about some of these, but maybe we'll get into a little bit more here. Identifying the fundamentals of good nutrition. This kind of goes back to shelf life of products. Think about the longer the shelf life of a product, it's probably going to be the shorter the lifespan for you. Maybe you've heard that before. The longer something sits on the shelf, the nutrients that you're going to get from that are probably not going to give you longevity. It's probably a lot of preservatives and chemical type things, not whole foods. There was a company that was making all whole food cupcakes, and they were trying to sell their cupcakes to some of the large grocery store chains. And in doing so, they had to create a product that could sit in a warehouse for a certain amount of time. What do you think that length of time?
I would think at least a month.
They were requesting that the cupcakes could sit somewhere in a warehouse for up to 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
And that was some of the large national chains. So obviously they rethought their strategy and they went with some of the smaller grocery store chains. But sometimes I think, our food system and how we deliver food to the masses may not be helping us. So trying to think through that. I mean, the whole thing about sustainability and eating local food, that's probably another talk we can do at some point. And that's defined a little bit differently for everybody. I heard a speaker the other day talk about, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, if we wanted to eat dark green leafy vegetables locally, we probably wouldn't eat any from November to March just because we have no way to grow that here. So we have to think through that as well. Reshaping your plate, what I talk about that is dividing your plate into sections and thinking about half of your plate always coming from fruits or vegetables, a quarter of your plate coming from a lean protein or a plant-based protein, and then the last quarter coming from something like a whole grain. So these are some pictures of meals we've had at our house, and keep in mind I have 3 teenagers. This is our Mexican night. So I have the salad and peppers, tomatoes, and then the black beans and the ground turkey, and then the tortilla shell. So you can kind of see half the plate and then the 2/4.
What was the second quarter protein? And then
The second quarter is a whole grain. This was pasta night. I have the spaghetti with a little bit of the protein, and then the half is the broccoli and then a side salad. And again, looking at all the colors. And then the last one I have was a pork chop, some mashed potatoes, and then green beans, and then it was pepper and cabbage salad. And again, lots of colors. And we don't eat like this every night, I'll be honest, but it gives you an idea that there's nothing like very spectacular about this, but always thinking about a variety of colors and dividing the plate like that. Let's see. Exercise portion control. In dividing your plate like that, you can kind of take care of the portion control. And then putting fullness on your side. What we mean by that is when you eat more plant-based foods, that extra fiber and water content make you feel full longer. That fiber helps with blood sugar stabilization as well. So that's always a good thing. And then thinking about your drinks, that's where these come in. What are you typically drinking throughout the day? Do I have coffee drinkers, tea drinker? Tea? Coffee?
Tea and coffee.
Okay.
Water.
and water.
Okay. Regular, like unsweetened tea or sweet tea?
Sweetened. Sometimes I put some honey in it.
Okay.
Sometimes I put nut milk in mine.
Okay. Well, I'm speaking to the choir here. Let's talk about, this is sweet tea. This is what my kids would pick. They don't necessarily like soda because they don't like the carbonation, but they would go for sweet tea. This bottle has 10.5 teaspoons of sugar. Again, when we're drinking it, we don't think of the sugar in this format, but that's what we're consuming in calories and lack of nutrients, I guess. Now, you're obviously still getting some fluid because there's water in there. And then what I call the frou-frou coffee drinks, I like just black coffee. So this Frappuccino, I don't like cold coffee though. Do you like cold coffee or are you a hot coffee? Yeah. Okay. This particular one has 11.25 teaspoons. And then I have a lot of families say, well, we drink Sprite because it's a clear cola. It's not the dark cola. This has almost the same amount of sugar as a Coke or a Pepsi. Now, if it was diet, it would be different, but that bottle has almost 16 teaspoons of sugar. Now, it doesn't have the caffeine, but it still has the sugar. So just getting you to think about drinks.
You only get half the buzz on that one.
Right, you only get the sugar buzz, not the caffeine and the sugar. The Monster drinks are about comparable as well. That's a whole nother arena of drinks. I'm going to go back to ingredients because I didn't do this. Usually I have some families of younger children. So I have gummy bears and I have the lovely fruit snacks. Which do you think would be a better choice?
Depends how much of them you eat.
Because say we're consuming what the serving size is for each of them.
Well, your typical answer would probably be the fruit snacks, but I'm going to say it's probably the gummy bears.
If you compare the two ingredient lists, they're almost identical
Really?
in like what the actual ingredients are. Let's see, one pouch is 80 calories and 17 pieces of this is 140 calories. So there is a little more sugar in this, but first ingredient is sugar, second ingredient is sugar in this. So really, this is candy, like this is candy. Everybody as a parent, we give these to our kids, but just understanding. Same thing like with a sugar cereal, like Lucky Charms, Frosted Flakes, sometimes can have as much sugar as a cookie or a breakfast cake. So being mindful, again, of those ingredients. Let's talk a little bit about reinventing our taste buds. I call it taste bud rehab. Trying to eliminate our sources of simple sugar and salt. Helping individuals on a food label understanding what that looks like. On a food label, sugar is always going to be in grams. Do we know what a gram of sugar looks like? Probably, I mean, maybe not, but the conversion is for every 4 grams of sugar, that's 1 teaspoon. So that's how I get how much teaspoons of sugar based on how many grams is in there. So 1 teaspoon is 4 grams of sugar. As far as sodium, sodium's always in milligrams on the food label, and roughly 2,300 milligrams is 1 teaspoon. So you look at a can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup, which is usually, I think, 2 servings. It can have 800, 900 milligrams in 1 serving. So if you eat that whole can, which some of us would do regularly at a meal, you're having over 1,000, 1,800 milligrams of sodium. So half of that, the recommendation is to try to stay under that 2,300 for the day.
So you said 2,300
100 is 1 teaspoon.
grams of salt.
2,300 milligrams is 1 teaspoon of salt, correct. How I like to use, 2,300 milligrams, that's a big number. So on the food label, there's always those percentages. We call it the 5-20 rule. If it's 5% or less, it's low in that nutrient. If it's 20% or higher, it's going to be high in that nutrient. So depending what nutrient you are looking at, you want it high or low. So it's the 5-20 rule. That's, I think, an easy way to kind of, you can use it for all the nutrients, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay. Broaden your taste buds' horizons. Here is where I encourage everybody to try 1 new vegetable or 1 plant-based food each week. So nothing crazy, but just trying something different. Have you tried a new fruit or vegetable recently and you found out you liked it?
Jackfruit.
Jackfruit, okay.
Same old.
Same old? Let me ask you this, do you eat the same colors of fruits and vegetables, or do you try to mix that up?
Oh, I definitely mix it up.
Okay, good.
Mine are mostly green.
Okay. So maybe trying to mix up the colors. Good. I mean, that's another way to look at it. Maybe not by type of vegetable, but what color it is, and trying to get a variety. Managing your cravings instead of letting them manage you. Obviously, trying to identify what truly is that trigger. I have some folks, they have a hard time deciding the difference between are they hungry or are they just thirsty. So what I usually have clients do when they're thinking they want something to drink, I have them stop and ask themselves 3 questions. The first one is more an emotion, like, am I tired? Am I mad? Am I sad? Am I stressed? Like when I stress, I eat. Like my husband, he stops eating. I don't know if that's the difference between men and women, but so is there an emotion that's making you want to eat? And then the second question is, am I thirsty? Sometimes we just need a good cup of coffee or a good cup of tea, and we really don't need anything to eat. And then the third and final question, am I truly hungry? If you're hungry, then pick something of nutrient dense. So kind of slowing down to walk yourself through those 3 questions. And then thinking about your meal plan, nutrition budget. Do any of you keep record of your food, what you're consuming? Okay, what do you?
I journal it every day.
Okay, do you do it on some kind of online platform, or you just write it down?
I just made a spreadsheet, so
Okay.
I know my exercise, my blood sugars,
Okay.
that kind of thing.
And do you have benchmarks that you're trying to? Yes and no.
Yes and no, I haven't made it there yet.
That's okay. That's
Baby
okay.
steps. Yeah.
The only reason I ask that, many people do log, but then they don't compare it to anything. So yes, just the act of logging can keep people accountable, but you also want something that you're trying to compare so you know you're hitting some of those targets. MyFitnessPal is one that a lot of people use. You can actually scan barcodes and it will record it. A new one that I have just started using with students, it's called Chronometer. It's Chronometer, Chronometer. It gives you much, much more information than maybe you want, but it gives you all the vitamins and minerals as well. So it gives you a much more comprehensive idea of what you're consuming. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? So food journaling, we kind of talked about, and then hydration. I just can't say enough about drinking enough water, as I'm like drinking my water, because, sorry. On the back of your handout, it gives you some guidelines of why or what, how much water we should be drinking. You know, the gold standard is anywhere between 8 to 12 cups of water in a day. And obviously we're replacing through the daily activity of our breathing, going to the bathroom, sweating, etc. And also when you start to incorporate more plant-based foods, we need more fluid to help move that bulk through. It gives you some other things to consider, like your age, your gender, your level of physical activity, maybe medications, and then especially once we get into the warmer weather and humidity, that may need to be increased. And then making sure you drink, if you're doing consistent, pretty intense activity, having something to drink before that activity, during, and after.
There used to be something that was published, and it's been some time ago since I saw it, but it was a mathematical equation that if you were within this age, within this weight, you should drink this much water. Are you familiar with it?
Not specifically. I have on the handout roughly for every 50 pounds about a quart of water, and then that fluctuates a little bit depending on weather and activity. I'm not saying there's not an equation out there, I just don't know the specifics.
Didn't they used to say half your body weight in water?
That's another often used basic calculation.
Be a swimming pool.
Have you ever tracked your water for the day to try to see?
Yeah.
Okay. And know how much you're getting?
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys tracked?
I know I'm perpetually dehydrated.
Okay. A lot of us are walking around dehydrated, even more so maybe in the winter, because I don't think we think about it maybe as much. What I have next, this is just a very, very basic sample menu of putting your fork to good use. The breakfast, I start with some kind of whole grain, the one on your left, and then adding some walnuts for a little bit of protein and the plant-based fat, and then some berries, and then I put the coffee or the tea. The other breakfast, I'm doing eggs, again a whole grain toast, some fruit. Lunch, I tried to focus on more kind of plant-based. I have the fish for the one, and then the dinner is more the plate of half your plate, or vegetables, or a quarter of your plate, the protein, and then a quarter your whole grain. So looking at that menu, would that be something you might consume? Or does that seem really out? Seems pretty reasonable. What about snacking? We haven't really talked about snacks. Are you much of snackers? Yes? What are you snacking on?
Well, since I've changed what I eat now, vegetables or nuts.
Okay, good.
I don't think I'm a big snacker.
Okay. And that's
Because
fine.
I usually start out with my cup of oatmeal with a half a banana and my coffee and a slice of toast.
Okay.
And then I like lentil soup for lunch.
Good.
And then my biggest part is not eating in the evening.
Like after dinner, like,
No.
or not even having anything in the evening? Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm really trying to get back on the either 5 small meals a day or even 6, because I find myself, you know, maybe I'll have breakfast at 10 o'clock or whatever, and a bowl of soup at 2 or 3, and I'm good for the rest of the day.
Okay.
Well, really, I'm not.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Are you packing lunch if you're away from home, typically, or not necessarily? And if you're not
Usually
away
not
from
away.
home, okay, so you're at home.
I usually get back home.
packing, if you are working or your way is just, again, it goes back to that planning. But again, it can save you money, and we know over the long haul, people tend to eat a little healthier. I wanted to share another resource that is a favorite of mine. It's called Cook Smarts. She has all these infographics. She has one, herbs and spices, and it gives you different seasoning blends or how you can use the herbs and spices for different types of foods. She has a whole library of different types of those infographics. She has one that's strictly just stir fries, like how to make different flavored stir fries.
You can get them on
Cooksmarts.com, correct. There is a piece of her site that's free, and then there is a piece of the site that there's a pay for to get additional information. And then she has little videos sometimes, like how do you roast vegetables, and it just gives you like a 2-minute, 3-minute video. One was herbs and one was spices. Okay, this is where your work comes in tonight. Uh-oh. Before you leave, want you to come up with 1 feet goal, 1 fork goal, and 1 finger goal. So the feet is related to some kind of activity, the fork is related to some kind of nutrition, and then the finger, this is more, the spiritual or mindfulness, that's going to be a little bit different for everybody. So if you want to take a few minutes to kind of think through that. Again, this is taking that knowledge and putting it into action, the power. I've had people do feet goals as simple as they're going to walk 15 minutes every day, or they're going to ride their stationary bike. I've also had an individual, every time she gets up in the morning, she's going to do 15 minutes of just very basic stretching. That's a type of activity. I'm thrilled with that. We know flexibility is a good thing too. So wherever you might be in your activity progression, pick something that's reasonable. Fork goal could be as simple as trying a new vegetable every week, or always having 2 vegetables at every meal, or like lunch and dinner. Not adding sugar to your beverages. Again, everybody's a little different. The fingers, I've had keep a thankful journal, like before you go to bed, write down 3 things that you were thankful for the day. I've had keep a prayer journal. Again, that's going to be a little bit different for everybody. So take a couple minutes and maybe think through those. And if you don't mind sharing one of them. Spot.
But for me, a fork goal would be to eat more salads. While I eat plant-based all the time, I don't eat a lot of salads.
Okay.
And it's not that I don't like them, it's just, it's easier to eat a bowl of soup than to eat a salad, so
Okay.
try to balance that out.
Something that has helped at our house, part of going grocery shopping, when we get home, we prep all the veggies. So like the salad, we'll cut all that up. And then my kids tend to eat it more throughout the week. Or like grapes, I don't know why. If I wash them and take them off the stem, they'll eat them all week. But if I leave them on the stem, they don't touch them. So that's just, I don't know. It is what it is. It's teenagers, right? So part of grocery shopping is just doing that prepping, which sounds like you're doing some of that with your tag team person. So that's good.
I've been working on the feet goal. There's it's similar to a water aerobics class, but it doesn't start for another couple weeks. So in between, now that it's gotten a little bit colder, I do my steps up and down, like up and down twice,
Okay.
like every hour.
Okay.
And I set my clock to it, so, it's like getting the zapper time to get up, we have to go up and down the steps.
Okay, so just your stairs in your house, you're saying? So at least once an hour, you're doing some
Get up
movement.
and get moving.
That's great. That's a great
Yeah.
place to start.
So that's kind of where I'm starting.
Okay.
The fort goal, is kind of, it's a little harder for me. Like I say, there's been some major changes at home. So to get back in the groove, it'll take some time.
Sure. You know, how many recipes or types of meals do you think most families or individuals consume over the course? Like, how many recipes, meals do they rotate over and over again? Like, if you think about, like, ours are spaghetti, sloppy joes, tacos, chicken, mac and cheese.
Well, now that he's gone, I've eaten everything he didn't like.
But is it probably safe to say you probably have 6 to 8 things that you just kind of rotate?
Oh, yeah.
And not that that's a bad thing, but again, if you create, what I usually try to have folks do, if they can create 3 weeks of menus and then recycle them. So if you have a friend, have them create 1 week, you create a week, maybe a third friend, and then you have 3 weeks. Do it in the fall, and then do it again in the spring, and because we tend to have different ingredients, and then can mix it up a little bit that way. So don't think you have to do all your ingredients on your own. That Smart, or Cook Smart, she has 2 infographics. One are all fall salads, and one that are all, I think, summer salads. So the fall ones use a little more of some of the, like, squash, sweet potatoes in them, and then the summer, spring, whatever, is a little more summer vegetables. So, Mark, what about you? You have a goal in any of the areas?
I could stand to diversify my food intake quite a bit because I bore myself to death. And I think that's part of what makes it difficult to resist it when you're driving past that fast food restaurant when you think, what I've got at home is really boring.
Right, yeah.
And I think also I could be more religious about, I mean, I do exercise, but I could be more religious about, sometimes you're just all comfy there on the easy chair and you're thinking, oh, I just don't want to. So setting a goal for doing it so many times a week or something like that.
Right. I really think more and more, if we can get people to do the gentle stretching, we can see some great benefits from that as we continue to, all of us, age. That having that flexibility is very key. I think always, the feet thing always goes to more walking, riding bike, which is important, but that stretching is just as important. So thinking about that. And you can find YouTube videos on a lot of that to do different things. I have a friend that's a chiropractor, and he tries to get all his clients doing daily planks. Like starting with, and that's building that core strength. Do you know what I mean when I say plank? You can do them different. Not really, but it's like a push-up with your hands or your arms straight, or you can do it with your arm, like you're laying on this part and your feet, so you're using your core and your arms and your legs to keep you elevated up off the ground. But maybe starting with 15 seconds for the first week, the next week trying to go to 30 seconds, and then, gradually moving that up for how long you're planking. Because again, we know that core strength helps with lower back problems and just, again, as we age. So, yeah. Okay, other questions or comments? Yes, Mark.
Do you have any advice? I mean, one of the things I find a challenge is that my work schedule varies a lot.
Okay.
So a lot of times, like tonight, I haven't had dinner yet. So when I get home,
Sure. Yeah.
I'm going to have like a cup of yogurt or something. And,
Right.
It's not going to be a diversified
Right.
meal. Do you have any recommendations for dealing with that in terms of like things you can do? I mean, if I throw an apple in there with that yogurt, obviously it's gone a long way to diversifying it without having to put a whole lot of effort into it.
I would, kind of go with the rule, even if you're having like kind of, I would call it a mini meal, make sure you're having more than one food group. So like the yogurt and fruit, the yogurt and some granola, you know, so you get a little balance there. The other thing is going to go back to, this is going to probably sound very simple, but the planning, like looking at your week at the beginning of the week, and if you know tonight and whatever other night this week that you had to work late, is there something you could have made earlier in the week than that you can have leftovers tonight when you get home? So like you get home, it's already decided.
Yeah.
I had one family that I worked with that they were trying to get in the habit of planning and nobody wanted to take the responsibility of making the meals. So they finally came to the agreement, whoever gets home first each evening, they have to start dinner.
So they'll stay away.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're living alone, that doesn't work, but I think planning ahead, knowing the nights that you're going to be not around, like I do a lot of evening nights, so if I don't have something planned for the kiddos, they're not going to eat either. They'll just do snacking. So it is being intentional about that planning. I know that's probably not the answer you wanted, but that truly is the best way.
As you're talking about, planning and being intentional, having a plan, I know that for me, my sugars fluctuate a lot in between exercise, and there can be times after exercise that I'm not feeling really good.
Sure.
So even if you have something, like a juice or a half of a container of juice before you exercise and have the other half afterwards,
Yes.
sometimes it doesn't bring you up quite where you need to be. So other than doing raisins or nuts, cutie oranges help.
Okay.
But are there other things, kind of get in a rut?
Just with juice, something besides juice maybe. Are you typically testing your blood sugars, or you just know you're low based on how you're feeling?
I
After
test
you-
it before I go in,
Okay.
to make sure that I'm not going to be seeing double and that I'm higher than what I thought I was, or that,
Yeah.
I'm in a safe zone.
Right.
And then it doesn't take long before it plummets.
So typically what we say is something that's more quick acting sugar right afterwards to get you back up, but then within a half an hour get some protein or fat to kind of help, because you've come back up. We don't want to come up and then go back down, but to kind of help maintain. So like you said, the nuts, or even some kind of milk-based yogurt or milk, because it has some protein in it too, or a little bit of cheese and crackers, peanut butter.
Peanut butter and celery,
Okay.
that type of thing.
Yep.
Sometimes apple slices, peanut
The
butter.
that would be fine. Yeah.
Something but then again, you don't want to overdo it either.
Right. You still have to be mindful of portion, but yeah, that's usually we do the kind of that juice or simple sugar right away to kind of feel a little bit better, but then again within 30 to 45 minutes some other protein or fat to help stabilize what you've brought up. Does that make sense? Okay. Good questions. Anything else?
So the program that you offer at St. Francis, the
Yes.
nutrition program, is that encompassing all types of eating, or is that based on a certain program?
It's all types. We do pride ourselves on evidence-based, and obviously we see the whole food plant-based has some evidence-base behind it. That doesn't mean we're teaching veganism. I mean, there's other ways you can still have lean animal protein and be healthy. What the program, there's actually 2 tracks that students can go through. The first track is nutrition with a health promotion concentration, and those that are doing more kind of just basic health coaching, that type of route. And then the other route are those individuals that actually want to sit for the National Registered Dietitian exam that would probably work more in a clinical type setting. That's the second concentration. With that particular major, they do their 4 years of classwork, master's degree or bachelor's degree, and then they do at least 1,200 hours with practicing dietitians in the community. That's just the way that program's set up. Come the year 2024, which will be here soon, you will have to have a master's to sit for that exam. So lots of changes. On the kinesiology side, a lot of our students partner with the PTA program, which is physical therapy assistant, which is an associate's. So they get the associates in PTA, the bachelor's in kinesiology, and then a lot of those students go on to physical therapy school at a doctorate level. That program is in the process. We will have a concentration where folks can become certified in strength and conditioning coaching, because a lot of athletic programs are now hiring those folks to train the athletes from the strength side. So there's lots of changes happening, which is good. Yeah. Okay, other thoughts or questions? Hopefully you learned at least one new thing. You have some resources with what I shared, and maybe think about food a little bit differently.